ScaleUp Institute log, stardate 100470.99 for Earthlings listening in, also known as 15th November 2022. As the ScaleUp Institute enterprise progresses its mission, 2022 has seen Earth enter a greater period of instability and turbulence. While still managing and adjusting to the effects of the COVID pandemic that has disrupted lives and supply chains, climate change shows no signs of abating, and conflict has led to even greater global tension and pressure on resources and costs. It is against this backdrop we assess the vital signs of our scale-up economy and its frontier outlook. Shields up, team. Let's beam up the data. Through 2020, the scale-up economy across the UK still managed to sustain itself and even grow slightly, despite the effects of the COVID pandemic, with at the end of the year 33,955 scale-ups in place, generating 1.2 trillion to the UK economy, still being the UK growth champions at over 50% of the SME economy, and employing over 3 million people and remaining highly productive. Overall, this represents a 26% increase in scale-ups since the ScaleUp Institute enterprise has been assessing the landscape. And importantly, we are maintaining a robust pipeline of scaling businesses, growing at 15% to 19.99%, which now comprises 16,700 scaling businesses, generating a further 410 billion yearly to the economy. And for the first time, we can see how this breaks down by growth rates. This is a positive trajectory, but there is a slowdown in pace of growth, which we cannot be negligent about. Now, let's teleport to look at the regional and sectoral splits. Here we observe again a good spread of sectoral scale-up activity, and particularly note the increase in the professional, tech, life science, creative, education and manufacturing scale-ups, now representing collectively 46% of the scale-up economy. And whilst the scale-up activity and pipeline spreads across the UK, there remain regional disparities, which we continue to need to tackle. We must not leave any area behind. Encouragingly, as we assess the scale-ups travelling at warp speed, we have a 13% uptick in our 2022 Scale-Up Index, reflecting 8,457 visible scale-ups, breaking through the 10.2 million turnover and 5.1 million asset barrier, with 336 of these listed on AIM. Pleasingly, the number of female-founded visible scale-ups in this group has increased by 30%. And we see notable scale-up clusters outside of London, in Leeds, Buckinghamshire, Manchester, Birmingham, Bristol, Cardiff, Glasgow and Edinburgh. The index consistently reinforces the importance of the core government agencies of Innovate UK and the development banks, such as British Business Bank, Scottish National Investment Bank, Development Bank of Wales. Grants to scale-ups by Innovate UK of 318 million, 14x'd, leveraging 4.5 billion of private sector money, highlighting the kite mark effect Innovate UK has in crowding in private sector backers to scaling businesses. Whilst the British Business Bank has backed 79 investment firms, 62 of which have invested in one or more visible scale-ups since 2011. And we also see the majority of our scale-up scale multiple times, which reinforces the focus we need to place on these. BGF remains the most prolific investor by number in our visible scale-ups, whilst peer-to-peer entities, Crowdcube and Seeders are playing a more prominent role. And SoftBank Vision remains the single largest investor by value. Notably, we observe the marked effect of foreign investors into UK scaling businesses, with 8 of the top investors by value being overseas entities. How we galvanise around our evolving scale-up clusters and hubs around the country to enable our scaling pipeline and scale-ups to scale even further beyond frontiers must remain a prime directive, alongside increasing engagement of UK funds into UK scale-ups. In the last few weeks, the survey shuttle pods of the ScaleUp Institute Enterprise have been out meeting with ScaleUp CEOs across the UK to test their pulse. We took readings from 338 ScaleUp leaders from across all sectors and geographies of the UK, generating some 2.5 billion in revenue and employing over 12,000 individuals. These are significant businesses. As we expected, all of the CEOs reflected on the macroeconomic factors affecting their growth trajectory today, from inflation to energy prices to consumer confidence and supply chain disruption amid global tensions. They are also now very much more concerned at the outlook in the UK itself as a place to grow. But it is testament to the resilience, focus and ambitions of our scale-ups that irrespective of the intensity of these headwinds and concerns, they still expect to scale into 2023, with 9 in 10 expecting to grow again and 1 in 5 expecting to scale at 50% or more. This resilience emphasises the fact we in the scale-up fleet of the private and public sector must do all we can to double down our efforts to remove the barriers and friction to scaling and make the flight path much easier. In 2023, for the third year running and dialing up, our scale-up's greatest challenge is access to markets. Whether trying to sell into the private or public sector or going internationally, there is still too much friction in the system for our scale-up's ability to do this as effectively as they wish. This is even more acute for our diverse founders. The battle for talent remains equally of high concern, alongside the continued grappling to find the right growth capital. It is also very clear that access to R&D and innovation, including the infrastructure surrounding that, remains pivotal to the support scale-ups want from the public sector, and this needs to be even easier to access. Over the past few years, we have seen the focus around leadership programmes beginning to have the right results for scaling firms. But we cannot be complacent. EU funding that backed many of these is now drying up, and we must ensure scale-up programmes that have proven impact continue. Scale-up CEOs continue to view local hubs as a key enabler of their ability to access the raft of national resources the public and private sector have to offer, and are clear enterprise agencies and growth hubs have value. They also want a step up in engagement from financiers, advisors and universities. The majority want to be known and relationship managed. Taking the pods deeper into the issues, the following diagnostics come to light. On the markets front, the international and innovation focus of our scale-ups, traits that are predictors of scale-up growth, continues at pace. The majority of scale-ups export and want to export further. They remain looking towards more exotic markets, but still need much better help to find overseas partners and customers and the talent to support their international drive. They want the private and public sector to provide more tailored scale-up trade missions, better introductions to buyers overseas and dedicated relationship management, with end-to-end support with better joined-up signalling. Scale-ups want to XXX their ability to sell into the public sector, and 3 in 10 want to enhance the ability to work with corporates. However, processes are too complex and protracted and difficult to navigate, with a lack of clarity and opportunities available to bid on. Scale-ups are very clear on how we can do better. Simple solutions, including account management and meet the buyer events, which we should act on. From a talent perspective, scale-ups remain significant employees of both international and homegrown talent. They highly welcome the introduction of the new scale-up visa. They also want to help foster our domestic talent and want to have more opportunities to fund apprenticeships and to join up better with the education system. Social and digital skills training remains vital. As high adopters of new technology, not surprisingly, when we assess some of the key roles they are now seeking to fill, A good range of these are in digital and engineering skill sets. But equally, there is a critical need for sales and business development, marketing and brand expertise, particularly in their leadership teams. In future hires, they are predominantly seeking people with resilience and flexibility, alongside excellent capabilities in decision-making and emotional intelligence. They see hybrid working here to stay and are focused on team development, as well as recognising their need to evolve their talent and board plans. 4 in 10 want more help in accessing non-executive director networks. Turning to growth capital, ScaleUps remain heavy users of finance across its multi-forms, much more so than their counterparts. VCs and angels are key sources of equity provision, highlighting the importance of these asset classes in the escalator of finance to enabling scale-up success. However, 5 in 10 remain of the view that they do not have sufficient capital to meet their current growth trajectory, and a similar number still perceive much of the funding resides in London and the South East, which reinforces all of the work currently being done to seek to address regional disparities remains absolutely necessary and requires continued focus. In recent weeks, much has been discussed on tax. From the ScaleUp CEO's point of view, the taxation system in the UK is a key plank to enable the scaling up of their ventures. EIS, SEIS, R&D and capital allowances have all played important roles in supporting their investment opportunities. And these need to remain in place and be consistent if we are to make sure we encourage and give confidence to our scale-ups to invest and grow in the future. How we raise awareness of these schemes and make them, particularly for R&D, as broad and as easy to access as possible is a key ask from our scale-up leaders. In the 8 years the ScaleUp Institute enterprise has been on its mission, our ScaleUp CEOs have been consistent on their needs. Today, their signals are loud and clear. Despite the turbulent frontier ahead in the world, they are pushing ahead on growth, innovation and internationalisation. We still have not done enough as an ecosystem to remove their barriers to growth. And confidence is very fragile, with optimism on the UK being a future good place to scale at an all-time low. So, if that is the vital signs of our UK scale-up leaders, what are the remedies to help our scale-ups attain their ambitions? Computer, to the holodeck to consult the doctor. In this past 12 months, we continue to see movement on our scale-up recommendations. The ScaleUp visa is now in place, and we will continue our work with the government to make sure it develops and delivers to ScaleUp's evolving needs. The government export, digital and innovation strategies are implementing and enhancing their focus on scale-ups and high-potential scaling firms. More work has been undertaken on closing the growth capital gap. Crucially, the movement's being undertaken to unlock institutional capital with the planned regulatory reforms to the pensions regulatory charge cap, alongside the Solvency II and listings reviews, coupled with the expansion of the British Business Bank and the development of LIFTs, all move forward a range of the ScaleUp Institute long-term recommendations. And the expansion of existing initiatives such as the Regional Angel Programme and regional funds are welcome. Sectoral initiatives, including the FinTech strategy, FCA Scalebox, Life Sciences Task Force and expansion of the Creative Growth Programme are all encouraging. But we need to warp speed our actions if we are to expand our scale-up fleet. Between the private and public sector, we have yet to crack the market access issue. Too much is still fragmented, unclear, clunky, complex and uncoordinated. There are simple things we can do to correct that. We can be more organised, such as developing, as some private firms in our scale-up ecosystem already have, scale-up relationship managers, high-growth teams and scale-up desks overseas. We can use data much better to pinpoint our scaling firms and connect them swiftly to relevant resources. We can be more like our US colleagues in leveraging public procurement and R&D investment into innovative scale-up firms by using the government spending power at local and national level as anchor clients and being more effective in the deployment of the SBRI. Each area can replicate London and Manchester's international programmes. Corporates who want to do more with scale-ups can learn more from their peers that do it well. In progressing our talent pipeline, it is evident that more enterprise is needed in our education system. Better alignment with scale-up needs is still required, and connection to scale-up leaders through internships, work placements, apprenticeships and job opportunities. These connections can be fostered through expansion of existing platforms and impactful initiatives such as those endorsed by the ScaleUp Institute, including Founders for Schools and Careers Enterprise Company, along with the replication of initiatives working well elsewhere, such as ScaleUp training academies linked with universities. Continued focus is also necessary to address the digital and tech skills shortages. There is good work being undertaken in this area, but we must see the siloed actions being more collaborative. The Digital Skills Council has a key role to play here, alongside private sector initiatives such as Future.now and the existing initiatives endorsed by the ScaleUp Institute, including Google Digital Garage and Barclays Life Skills. At the same time, momentum needs to be maintained to close the leadership needs of our scale-up businesses. Peer-to-peer groups and mentoring remain important. In 2023, the ScaleUp Institute will work with Innovate UK Edge and the collective ecosystem to develop a non-executive director hub in a private sector collaboration, bringing together leading players. With the concerted effort being made by government and regulators to alleviate regulatory barriers to institutional investment to our scale-up economy, which must be progressed at pace, it is now a critical time for the private sector to work more closely together, to step up with new solutions and collaborations to foster larger scale growth capital pools through initiatives like the Capital Markets Industry Task Force led by the London Stock Exchange to further enable the UK to close its gaps in the funding continuum. This is even more important when we witness the current slowdown and tightening of scale-up investment and the ongoing regional, diversity and sectoral disparities. And with only 12% investment in equities in 2018 versus 73% in 1999, we need to address this imbalance. Confidence to invest is also driven by consistency of tax initiatives, which need to be maintained and promoted. And work is still needed to close the growth capital knowledge gap and connectivity asymmetries. Work we continue to do with the British Business Bank and our finance partners, leveraging learnings from the Invest in Creative Toolkit, which now encompasses over 270 investors. Underpinning our scale-up economy must be the ecosystem infrastructure that supports growth. We know that clusters and hubs, locally situated, can make a real difference to enabling scale-ups. This has been evidenced in the work we have assessed in Denmark and in the quantitative analysis we undertook on local growth drivers, as well as in the range of our exemplars and case studies that we have endorsed, such as ScaleUp Northeast, ScaleUp Scotland, Alderley Park, Brabraham Research Campus, and now Stevenage Bioscience Catalyst. We need to leverage and expand the hubs that are working well and the initiatives that are having impact. We have an opportunity in the new investment zones to foster greater investor and scale-up connectivity. In rolling these out, we must be joined up and crowding in, not duplicating or bifurcating. And we cannot either forget that historically, much of our business support infrastructure, and indeed finance for scaling businesses, has been enabled by European funding. In 2023, the UK must ensure the ability to continue funding those initiatives that are working well and having results. as well as address the ability to continue to engage Horizon Europe or find a suitable alternative through UKRI and Innovate UK. To drive certainty into the ecosystem and give confidence to investment, similar to our international counterparts, we should consider giving greater permanent status to the British Business Bank and Innovate UK, who have both had proven impact in our scaling economy. For our part, the ScaleUp Institute Enterprise will continue to be a ScaleUp academy and observatory for the ecosystem, bringing together in 2023 with Innovate UK and our partners further workshops for our innovation and economic development leaders of what it takes to evolve the local innovation and scale-up ecosystem, including learnings and good practice from around the UK and internationally. Our 10-point plan for growth is practical and focused and will be one we continue to work with the private and public sector on delivering. To boldly grow our scale-up enterprises like never before, we must act as a collective, beam in on our scale-ups, engage to enable their warp speed to new innovation, to new worlds and discoveries. We must bolster our scale fleet and align our resources in a targeted and segmented manner to our scaling stars. In 2023, let's make it so. Beam me up, Scale Fleet. Engage. Scale long and prosper.